Boss man, we're going to talk a little bit about this filly and mare sprint to get the Saturday card kicked off. Two ways and means or two not ways and means?
I'm going to have to say two ways and means. Yeah, I think she's going to be pretty tough. You know, this was a race that looked maybe a couple of months ago like it could be one of the marquee races of the weekend. And don't get me wrong, it's a very good race. Drew a decent sized field. There's a little bit of filler in there. I'm not really sure all of them are going to be all that competitive, but you know what I think we're kind of hoping for was that we'd get Sweet Azteca. Hopefully that we'd get one of the Bafferts that's not named Pleasant, like Hope Road or somebody like that. But alas, they did not make it. And so what we have really, to me, boils down to 4 win candidates. I think Ways and Means is the likeliest winner of those. I went back and watched a lot of replays and tried to really make a determination on where Ways and Means will be early, whether it'll be okay. Obviously, without the benefit of the post draw, it's all conjecture at this point. But she's coming into this race the right way, and I think certainly was flattered by Emery's strong performance in last Saturday's Raven Run.
Yeah, the thing about Ways and Means, I think for me, is that while from what she's done on the racetrack compared to what we've seen Society or Scylla or Vava do this year, she's not like leaps and bounds ahead of them. And I think she's ahead of them. But I think the part about her that gets me warm and fuzzy is the fact that she did those things in the middle of her 3-year-old year, where you'd like to think she's going to continue to get better, continue to grow up, and continue to get faster. If she takes that step forward, she could be tough for those other ones. Of those other 3, Society, Vava, and Scylla, I'm assuming those are, at least a couple of those are the ones that you mentioned that could beat her. Which ones kind of get you the most excited, and for what reasons?
You know, I think Society, it's funny. So in terms of the way they were bet at Saratoga, obviously Vava was the most fancied, then Scylla, then Society. And I feel like in a way, the way they finished is probably the order in which I like them this time around. I love the cutback. So Scylla to me was a bet last time. Now she ran well enough to be a major threat in here. It does give you a little pause that Bill Mott's barn has been cold. Bill Mott doesn't have the caliber of horses that he did last year when he had 2 Breeders' Cup winners and has had 2 Breeders' Cup winners each of the last couple of years. So I don't want to hold it against him too much, but you do have to be a little worried. I mean, the guy's 2 for 50 at Aqueduct, right? He's not what you'd expect. He's not done much better in Kentucky. So Scylla to me is a horse who's going to need a little bit of pace help. Society's the most dangerous because she's the fastest horse early in this field. There's nobody in here who can keep up with her. If she were to draw an outside post and be able to stalk and kind of take the race to everybody else like she did at Saratoga, I think it would help her chances immensely. My concern with Vava is that, I thought this going into the ballerina, it was probably one of my only good opinions, and it was a negative opinion. I thought she was vulnerable in the ballerina because I didn't love that race she ran at Churchill. I thought she was very workmanlike. I didn't really think she had that same kind of pop that she had in the Derby City Distaff or in the Madison. I noticed last night that obviously it's still a budding career for Cherie DeVoe, but she's 0 for 17 with graded stakes horses on dirt coming off 60-plus day layoffs. And so I don't love Vava coming back off this break. I think based on what we saw at Churchill in May, she might be a filly who's better when she runs more frequently. And now she's going to be coming into this off a bit of a break. I do think she maybe went down to a slightly negative rail last time, but I don't think it mattered terribly much. I think she was finishing 3rd no matter what. Maybe she would have been a little bit more of a player for 2nd. So of the 3, I like Society the best. My problem, of course, with Society, I think is everybody's problem, is that she doesn't show up all that often. When she shows up and when the good Society is there, she's very good and she's definitely capable of winning this race. But I think there have got to be some natural concerns about whether she's going to reproduce the form that we saw at Saratoga.
Yeah, and look, I think the other thing about this race I think is funny is that Chad Brown's looking for his 3rd consecutive filly and mare sprint, which is funny because, Chad early in his career was pigeonholed as this turf trainer who couldn't win big dirt races. Not to mention, is he going on for his 3rd filly and mare sprint? He also has won 5 of the last 9 Champagnes. What more prestigious 2-year-old dirt races there in this country than the Champagne? Chad's just kind of found his groove with these types of horses. And Goodnight Olive, although she was extremely good, I got to think that Ways and Means possesses a significant more amount of talent.
I think so. I think Goodnight Olive probably came along at the right time. She did beat a good field at Keeneland 2 years ago. Last year's field was not nearly at the same level. But yeah, in fact, I believe that, so this would be Chad's 4th filly and mare sprint overall. I believe his first grade 1 dirt win was the filly and mare sprint with Wavell Avenue in 2015. So I don't, he probably won one before that I'm just not thinking of. But yeah, it's a race he's done well in, and no surprise with his background being good, especially with female horses. So, you know, she Ways and Means, ironically, a Klarovich homebred, right? Seth Klarman's two big Breeders' Cup hopefuls are both homebreds, which you generally don't see very much. And he owned the dam here as well before she was claimed from him, but got her back, and she's a practical joke. So it's kind of funny. And she's, you know, look, she's been very good. She's been consistent. That's one thing that we've not really seen all that much of. I think her bad races are all explained away by distance. And I don't think she ran poorly in the Gulfstream Park Oaks at all. I think she ran very well. Losing to Power Squeeze, no shame in it, given what we saw from her throughout the campaign. And then she got dueled into the ground by Torpedo Anna in the Kentucky Oaks. Ooh, what an atrocity, right? I mean, a lot of horses can say the same thing so far in 2024. So Ways and Means has delivered pretty much every time she's been given the opportunity. I think the mistake that people are going to make is they're going to label her a wet track horse. And I do not think that's the case at all. I think the fact is that she's a good horse who happened to win 2 races recently on wet tracks. She's been very good on dry tracks as well. Arguably her best race to date, at least from a speed figure perspective, was that one other than at Saratoga on Belmont Stakes weekend. And that was on a dry surface. She got a 104 buyer. So I don't really see why you'd make that argument. And at the end of the day, I really don't think it matters terribly much. She's the horse to beat. You know, from this perspective, we're doing this a week and a half or so out from the race itself. What could be the problems for Ways and Means? Maybe drawing the inside, right? Drawing the inside with 2 speeds immediately to her outside. That might force Flavien Prat's hand a little bit in terms of where he positions her early. But I think if she's able to get to a pace stalking spot, I'm hopeful that we see a real step forward from her. And it should set her up for a heck of a 2025.
Boss man, appreciate you.
My man, anytime. Good luck. Good luck, everybody, and enjoy it.
TwinSpires.com are back in the tournament game. You can play the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge through TwinSpires.com, and you can also start trying to qualify for horse racing's latest major tournament, the 2025 Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. Go to TwinSpires.com and click the Tournaments tab.